Hi everyone, welcome to Source Snack Break. I am Ren with Source. Today is Tuesday, August 25th. We are still talking about amazing manufacturers and folks who are in our library here in Portland, our new flagship. Before we get started, I'll explain a couple things about the webinar tool. You're all muted automatically, but you have access to that live chat there on the right, so you can pop in your favorite emoji to try it out. You can also use it to ask any questions or comment, and we'll be sure we answer any questions you have. So bring it on. We love it. We'll also send you a recording of this presentation after we're done so you can reference it later or send it to a friend. I am super excited about today's guest. This is our friend Paige with Urban Plantscapes, and we are talking plants. And I'm really excited because I know we're all like amateur gardeners in our homes now. So I'm really excited for your expertise. Before we get started, can you tell us a little bit about your background?
Yeah, sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, you can.
Perfect. I have a degree in horticulture. I got my bachelor's of science in Idaho at BYU, Idaho, and I just fell in love with plants. I used to suffer severely from seasonal depression in the wintertime. It is the worst. I'm sure lots of people experience that. And I started to work in greenhouses in the wintertime, and I noticed that my seasonal depression just went away almost completely. It was phenomenal. So I instantly grew a greater love for plants and have started collecting them, and I just, I love it. Yes.
Sweet. And so how long have you been doing plants with Urban Plantscapes?
I had just recently joined Urban Plantscapes back in January.
Awesome.
It is basically a dream job for me, so I'm super excited. I have done commercial landscaping before this and have been in the world of landscaping other plants. I've been a store manager, retail, various other things to do with plants. But this job is really fun because I get to help designers install plants into areas, create moss art, living walls, just add that relaxation element that biophilia gives us.
Yes. Can you tell us a little bit about Urban Plantscapes as a company? Like, what is it that they do? How do designers work with them? Tell us more.
So Dees Urban Plantscapes is a local family-owned company here in Portland. They've been around for over 65 years. They started as a rhododendron and azalea garden center way back in the day.
Awesome.
And they had, I've got some of my coworkers joining the call, so that's fun. They had 7 kids, and they all named them with the letter D, starting the letter D. So that's where the 7 Ds came from. Yeah, that's where it came from. And so as they grew up, they just kind of evolved the business. They added landscaping, and then they added more garden centers. And then just about 7 years ago, they added Urban Plantscapes too. So Urban Plantscapes is interior focused, decor focused. We do anything regarding plants indoors, including faux plants, if you want to go that route, moss art, living walls, and holiday decor. So we are able to do those little touches that normal landscaping companies aren't able to access.
Awesome. So it really does sound like a dream job. This sounds awesome.
It is. It's super fun.
So let's talk a little bit about working with plants or designing with plants. How do you work with designers, and what do you tell them when it comes to either picking out plants or incorporating them into a design, into a space? Like, what are things designers should keep in mind when it comes to putting plants into a space, an interior space specifically?
They should keep in mind the nature of the space, how big it is, how much flow you have, where the traffic is going. Obviously, we don't want to put plants where people are going to walk, except now with social distancing, we're using plants to help guide traffic in another route. So they have so many different uses. But you also want to consider the color palette. Choosing the right container is super important. That often gets overlooked in a design. You don't want to have, pictured here, we have some espresso colored pots for our design, and it just wouldn't exactly fit in a black and white designscape. So you want to make sure you have the right tones, the right textures for your containers, and that's where we as designers on our team step in, and we can provide those right materials for your design.
Got it. And so when a designer is thinking about working with plants or putting plants in a space, are there places where you should absolutely not put a plant? Like, don't even think about it. Like places where we kind of forget to not put plants.
Oh, all the time. We run into this all the time. People love to put plants in rooms with no windows.
Oh yeah, classic. Okay, they need lights.
That's going to happen often. Yeah, all the time. That happens in commercial spaces because we can't always get windows. But plants, fortunately, are able to handle normal lights, you know, well enough. And also, I would say that plants get put near vents a lot, which is detrimental to their health, whether that's heating or cooling. Either one is not good. Or sometimes even by front doors, that draft just is really bad for the plants too. We love to put plants there, and so we deal with them dying. But overall, they want a perfect environment. They don't want it to change too much. They're actually drama queens, and they want a perfectly humid, warm, sunny environment, and that's super hard to do indoors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so when it comes to sort of working with plants, can you talk a little bit about sort of like the physical and emotional benefits of having plants in a space, especially since sometimes designers, we do have reputations of really liking white rooms, full of white things. Can you talk about like, how can designers affect the mood and the feel of the people in a space using plants?
Yes, this is one of my hot topics. I love talking about this. I mean, it's the reason I love plants so much. But humans grew up in nature for 95% of our history. Like, just, you know, humans evolved from nature. We only recently started becoming urbanized, and that has taken a toll on our mental health. It's increased our stress. It's increased crime. It's increased a lot of health issues. I could go on and on about the negative effects of going urbanized. I mean, there's a ton of good things too. I mean, we are progressing as human beings.
Yeah.
But the way that plants help us counteract those things is just incredible. When I was in college, actually, I did a study on some students. We took the library study area and we took away all the plants that were already in there. And then we divided the room in half, and the students in the library couldn't tell we were doing a study. Like, they had no idea. We divided the room by a bookshelf, and on one half of the room we had plants, on the other half we didn't have any plants. And it was incredible to watch everyone gravitate towards the side of the room with plants, just subconsciously. They had no idea there was a study going on. They just wanted to be by plants. And then we flipped it and we did the study with real plants versus fake plants. And it is, again, incredible to see how people gravitated towards the real plant side. And even though you have that, you still have that greenery there, that effect. Subconsciously, we are innately connected to nature. And that's the definition of biophilia, just humans' innate desire to be connected to nature.
Awesome. And so it kind of pairs well, creating rooms with enough light to grow plants, because humans also like light. And so it seems like a natural sort of mix there. So make sure you have light and make sure you have plants.
Yeah, and it's not just, biophilia doesn't just include plants. It's anything natural, whether that's water, animals, just natural flow line, natural lines in your design. So it doesn't have to mean you have to put a plant in, even though that's what I'd like you to think. But any way that you can bring nature indoors, that's soothing. The effects it has on our brains is incredible. I'm not a very scientific-minded person, but there are so many studies where they have analyzed the neurons in our brain, and when people are in a complex and natural setting like the forest by a waterfall, their brains, I don't know the right words for it, but just the sectors in the brain are allowing us to feel relaxed and to release the stress. And that's why it's so incredibly important to get out into nature for your mental health. Like, I mean, that's a common thing that people know already.
I love that. So when it comes to working with you all, what kind of scale should we think about in terms of like how to pick a plant for a space? Like when we're looking at the container, the type of plant, like how should a designer think about like color scale and type of plant and work with you all to pick the appropriate thing?
Well, fortunately, plants come in lots of different shapes and colors. I love these pictured here. These are bromeliads, and we use these as kind of a color change out for variety. So these get refreshed about every, 6 to 8 weeks. We put fresh ones in.
Oh,
But
fun.
I definitely would consider, you have the rule of thirds when you're doing design in containers. That doesn't necessarily always apply, though. I mean, creativity is also, sky's the limit. But yeah, I don't know. There's just a lot of textures that we can utilize and uh, any shape you want. I mean, plants come in all kinds of crazy shapes, draping. They're spiky. I love palms, especially to add to a space and give you that tropical, relaxed feel. That's one of my go-tos for sure.
We have, I think, a couple of those in our office, and you're right. People gravitate towards them. They're just super fun.
Yeah.
So you guys can work with trees, like indoor trees. Okay.
Yeah. There's actually some really cool airports across the nation that have huge trees planted inside. And they're just part of, I mean, I'm sure lots of us have seen cool interior rooms that direct plants into the space. Vegas has a ton of spaces like that.
Yeah.
And they're used to draw the eye and allow for people to move more freely through the space.
Yeah. We have our first questions. Are there plants that take less maintenance? Like we're thinking about a budget-friendly project where heavy upkeep is a no-go. And what about plants in schools?
Yes, there's definitely plants that love to be neglected, as I like to put it. Succulents are definitely one of those.
I'm a succulent fan for the same reason. Yep.
And I would say Sansevierias too are another good one that you can neglect for months and months, and they'll still look fine. I mean, we definitely encourage good care for all the plants, but yeah, there's a select few that can take a lot of abuse before they look, like they're dying.
Yeah. And what about using plants in schools?
Yeah, again, I would recommend Sansevierias. They're super cool because they come in a lot of shapes and sizes and patterns. My favorite Sansevieria is a Cylindrica. It looks like fingers, spiky fingers. Mother-in-law's tongue is another word for it. Snake plants. Those are they're technically considered a succulent, but we don't really, I don't know, we don't really view them as that. But yeah, they can take a lot of abuse. And they look green all the time too until they get damaged. So yeah, I would go with, if you're looking for a good plant to take heavy abuse, I would go with those.
little kid fingers, because they're gonna want to touch it.
Yeah, definitely.
That is something I do notice, is that when you do have plants in a space, people are drawn to them and they also want to touch them. And so should designers plan to just know that people are going to interact with these things when they're in a space and just embrace that?
Yeah, I think to a point that's definitely a good thing to note. We do struggle a lot with people pouring their leftover drinks into plant containers.
So stop doing that.
I mean, we have little tiny signs to put on pots if that becomes a real issue. But and containers, especially in malls or places where there's a lot of people, airports, we find a lot of garbage. We find all kinds of debris inside containers. So yes, people are probably the worst pests that attack plants. And so that's always something that you have to keep in mind. But at the same time, I think that's a benefit to the space that designers should keep in mind. Like the people are going to be interacting with your design in your space. So I would think that's a benefit, even though it might be detrimental to the plants.
Let's talk about moss walls for a little bit. Even though we don't have a photo of them, I think they're super popular right now. What should designers know when they want to specify a moss wall in terms of like what substrate do they need to put it on, if any? What kind of maintenance are we looking at? Are there places they shouldn't go? Yeah, tell us more. Let's all get some moss walls.
Perfect. Moss walls are great when you want to add greenery, but you don't want maintenance and you don't want to damage your walls. I mean, you're going to screw it into the wall. That's how we just screw them straight into the wall. But they don't need any maintenance. So there's not going to be any water damage. And you're not going to, I mean, they're the easiest biophilic thing to add to your space. You can design them in any shapes. We've done logos in moss walls. We've done, there was one project we did a couple months ago where they were doing a new construction site and they took a tree that existed on the site, and we used the bark into the moss art piece, and it was stunning. It had a piece from the location incorporated into the art, and it was beautiful. So you really can get creative. People do shells and crystals and branches and you name it, you can put it into moss art. And so it's very flexible and creative that way. And then it lasts, I mean, without maintenance, we recommend every 2 to 3 years to do little touch-ups. And as long as your space has regular humidity levels, then it doesn't dry out at all. I do recommend trying to keep it out of direct sunlight. But even then, you know, we very, very rarely do we see color fading, but that can happen. And if your space does dry out, like if you don't have enough humidity, the moss can get a little crunchy. If you think people are going to be touching it, we don't advise that part. But otherwise, if you have enough humidity levels, which Portland does, so that shouldn't be an issue. There's really no negative side to adding a moss art piece. They're the easiest route to go.
And so are they like, is this the reindeer moss that's like kind of alive but also isn't kind of alive? Is that what we're talking about?
Yeah. So the process that we use for the moss is, well, I mean, we don't do it, but they inject this glycerin solution into the live moss that makes it preserved. So it is real moss, but we're able to.
Uh-oh, you cut out.
Oh,
there you go. You're good now.
It's real moss, but it's preserved. So yeah, we can color any color, like the purple, pink, blue, any color, and they stay spongy because of that glycerin substance.
Got it. And then the last thing I wanted to chat with you all about is like when it comes to containers, I know this is something that you all will work with us on, but like how much how much soil do plants need? Do you know what I mean? Like I'm always worried that I am not giving them enough.
Enough soil.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, that really depends. Oftentimes when we're staging, this picture right here is direct planted. So we took the plants out of their grow pots and we added some soil to stage this little succulent dish garden. But a lot of other times when we're staging plants in spaces, we leave them in their grow pots just for easy change outs. When they die, we're able to make, we change it out and make it look fresh at all times for our clients. But if you're at home, it really depends on what plant you're getting. You always want, if you have like a 6-inch pot, you always want a container that's a couple inches bigger. And as that plant grows, you're going to want to move it up sized pots. If you want to keep it the same size, that's totally fine too, and the plants can handle that. But you do have to take it out of the pot and give it a haircut on the roots. Oh, that's something that if you're going to keep it in the same pot and want it to be healthy, you got to give it a little root trim too. So I mean, you can. That's why bonsais are so popular. They leave them in minimal soil, but they can keep these plants alive for so long because they do unpot the plant, trim the roots, replant it. So, and then you have hydroponics at the same time, which doesn't even need soil. So it really depends on what you're doing.
So in the little bit before we have to go, can you give us some tips for those of us who are now stuck in our homes and are now like surrounding ourselves with greenery and becoming amateur gardeners in ways that we did not think we were going to be? What should designers at home keep in mind when they want to add some biophilia to their space?
I would definitely keep in mind your humidity levels. If you love tropical plants, which I do, like monsteras and palms, then you're going to probably need an added humidifier or other way of adding humidity. My house is not great for that. So my monsteras struggle. I think that the other big key is to not overwater. Overwatering is the #1 killer of houseplants. You want to give them so much love, but they, you know, most of the time they take about 2 weeks to dry out, and you want the soil to dry out so the roots can breathe. So stick your finger in at least to the first or second knuckle to check if it's dry before you water again. That's like a very general rule of thumb.
I feel so justified now because my spouse was making fun of me for not watering my succulents. And I was like, it was my understanding that they don't need a lot of watering. And I felt I was doing a good job. So I'm feeling a little bit more justified. Okay.
Yeah, I think I water my succulents maybe once a month. Maybe. Okay. Yeah, very minimal.
I also noticed that some of our friends that come in to water our plants or to care for our plants in our office, if our succulents get too big, they'll give them a trim and then replant them and they'll grow back. Yeah. And so can designers do that with their succulents at home, is like start new little succulent babies?
Succulents are amazing because you can take the little leaves, like a little section of it, and if you just take it and set it on top of the soil, you do not have to do anything to it. Just set it on the soil. Don't plant it or anything. Roots eventually will grow from it, and a little baby succulent will start growing. Like you'll see little tiny baby leaves, like it's the cutest thing ever. But Google succulent propagation if you want more information on that. But you don't have to do basically anything, and little baby succulents can grow from the old leaves. It's so cute.
I'm sold on the succulents. I love it. Designers, if you need to reach out right now, you can go to our library and see them there. You can also reach out to our Urban Plantscape friends right from our website. So you can definitely do that. And it sounds like you can start making little succulent babies at home. So we can all start doing that. And designers, if you want to register for another snack break, you can smash that register now button. We've got the remaining lineup this week is going to end with our 2 amazing librarians. Brittany and Andrew are going to answer your questions, and we're going to grill them about doing material research and all that good stuff. But in the meantime, Paige, it was great to chat with you about plants. This was so fun.
Thank you so much.
I was just even looking at plants.
Yeah, I thought about having a plant. I was going to have like a plant background, but I'm not technologically skilled, so.
I love it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and hopefully we'll see you soon.
Yes, thank you so much. Bye.
Right, bye.